England, historically a land of rich history, opportunity, and dreams, has long been a top destination for immigrants from all over the world. For centuries, people have flocked to the UK, seeking new beginnings, better prospects, and a fresh start. However, something significant has shifted in recent years. The UK is now experiencing an unprecedented exodus of immigrants, with record numbers of people leaving the country. The question that arises is, why is this happening? Why are so many immigrants choosing to leave, packing their bags, and returning to their home countries or heading elsewhere? Today, we'll take a closer look at the real reasons behind this migration trend and explore what's driving so many to leave the land that once symbolized a new life and brighter future. The cost of living, a major obstacle to survival. One of the most significant factors contributing to this trend is the rising cost of living in the UK. Over the past few years, the cost of daily life has surged across the board, making it harder for immigrants, especially those starting with limited financial resources, to sustain a living. Housing costs have skyrocketed, particularly in major cities like London, Manchester, Birmingham, and Bristol. In London, the average house price has crossed £500,000, which makes it nearly impossible for many immigrants to even think about home ownership. Nationwide, the average house price has surpassed £290,000. For many immigrants already grappling with financial challenges, owning a home seems like an unattainable dream. Renting hasn't fared much better. In London, average monthly rent has surged to around £2,000, and rents have increased by 10 to 15% in cities like Manchester and Birmingham just in the past year alone. For immigrants trying to support families on a modest salary, managing rising rent bills and other living expenses can quickly become an overwhelming struggle. The dream of building a better life seems increasingly distant when basic necessities are eating up a majority of a family's income. Inflation, a burden too heavy to bear. On top of housing costs, inflation has made daily life even more difficult. In the past year, grocery prices have surged by a staggering 133%. Basic items such as bread, milk, and eggs, once considered staples, have now become luxuries for many, particularly those on low incomes. Immigrants working in low-wage jobs, many of which are labor-intensive and service-based, have seen their purchasing power shrink drastically. The challenge of stretching a paycheck to meet basic needs has become a grim reality for many families. Additionally, the soaring costs of gas, petrol, and energy bills have added to the financial strain. The UK has some of the highest energy prices in Europe, and with the cost of petrol rising sharply, even basic activities like commuting to work, driving children to school, or running errands have become unaffordable for many families. For an immigrant trying to make ends meet in this climate, providing for a family can feel like a constant struggle. With wages failing to keep up with skyrocketing prices, it's no surprise that many immigrants are re-evaluating their lives in the UK and considering alternatives. Political climate, the growing sense of hostility. Another factor that has contributed to the exodus of immigrants from the UK is the political climate. In recent years, there has been a notable rise in hostility towards immigrants in some parts of British society. Heated debates over Brexit, discussions surrounding national identity, and concerns about immigration overload have created an environment where immigrants increasingly feel unwelcome. For those who once felt at home in the multicultural atmosphere of the UK, the growing sense of hostility is difficult to ignore. Furthermore, the government's immigration policies have become more stringent. Many long-term residents are finding it increasingly difficult to renew their visas or secure the necessary permissions to stay in the country. As immigration controls tighten in response to public pressure, immigrants are facing more uncertainty about their futures. For those living in constant fear of being forced to leave or facing bureaucratic hurdles, it becomes much harder to see a future in the UK. This sense of instability is pushing many to seek greener pastures elsewhere, where they may feel more welcomed and secure. The impact of COVID-19, a double-edged sword. The COVID-19 pandemic was a global game-changer, and the UK was no exception. The pandemic brought with it massive lockdowns, economic turmoil, and an uptick in job losses. Immigrants, who often occupy positions in industries like hospitality, retail, and tourism, were hit particularly hard. These industries saw large-scale layoffs, and many of the jobs immigrants relied on were the first to be cut. While the UK government introduced furlough schemes to help individuals keep their jobs during the crisis, many immigrants working on temporary or non-permanent contracts were left out of these measures. In addition to the financial uncertainty, the mental toll of the pandemic was significant, with many immigrants facing stress, anxiety, and burnout. As a result, many decided it was no longer worth enduring the constant strain, and they chose to leave the UK in search of a better, less stressful life. The pandemic amplified pre-existing challenges and made it even harder for immigrants to stay and thrive in the UK. Education and the pursuit of a better future. For many immigrant families, the pursuit of a better life is rooted in the hope of providing a brighter future for their children. Education is a significant motivator for migration, with many immigrants seeing it as a ticket to success. However, rising tuition fees and the overall cost of education in the UK are now driving some families to reconsider their options. The UK is home to some of the world's top universities, but the rising cost of tuition, especially for international students, has made higher education increasingly inaccessible for many immigrants. Additionally, the cost of childcare and the broader educational system has placed a financial burden on working-class families, further discouraging them from staying in the country. A glimmer of hope, new beginnings and fresh starts. Despite these challenges, there is a silver lining for many immigrants. In recent years, countries like Portugal, Germany, Canada, and Australia have seen a rise in immigration numbers, offering better opportunities, more affordable living, and more welcoming policies. For some immigrants, returning to their home countries or moving to a new nation with more favorable conditions is seen not as a failure but as an opportunity for new beginnings. For others, it's about finding a place where they can thrive without constantly struggling to survive. Whether it's the high cost of living, political tensions, or the search for a better future, the story of immigrants leaving the UK is one of resilience. It highlights the lengths people are willing to go in order to create a better life for themselves and their families. While the UK may have lost some, the world is vast, and new opportunities always lie ahead. In conclusion, the wave of immigrants leaving the UK could be a sign of a shifting global dynamic. Is this the end of an era for immigration in the UK, or is it merely a temporary setback? As the world changes, new chapters and new opportunities await. What do you think? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more insightful discussions. Remember, no matter where you go, a new chapter always awaits.